In the soft glow of a September morning, a young doctor changed the bandage for a female billionaire lying in a coma. Shockingly, she woke up, and the morning shift at Mercy General Hospital began, like any other for Dr. Ethan Carter. Yet, there was something magical about the golden autumn light streaming through the hospital windows that made him pause, heart-stirring, in his routine. At 31, Ethan had been working in the neurological intensive care unit for 6 years, pouring his soul into patients who often couldn't speak for themselves, who depended entirely on the compassion and expertise of their medical team. Ethan's dark hair was always slightly tousled, no matter how hard he tried to keep it neat, and his warm, genuine smile had become a beacon of hope for families navigating their darkest moments. He approached medicine not just as a science, but as a sacred calling, believing that healing flowed as much from human connection as from medical precision. Room 312 had been home for 3 months to a patient who had captured the hearts of everyone at the hospital, though not for the usual reasons. Isabella Thornton, a 28-year-old entrepreneur, had been in a coma since a car accident that gripped headlines not for the crash itself, but for who she was. The Thornton family fortune, built through generations of savvy investments, had made Isabella one of the youngest female billionaires in the nation. But wealth was powerless against a traumatic brain injury. Isabella lay still, silent, her auburn hair fanning across the pillow like a fiery halo, breathing with the hum of machines, while her family kept a tireless vigil. Other doctors treated her with professional skill, but Ethan noticed something that troubled him deeply. Too many staff. She was becoming more of a medical puzzle than a person. Ethan had a practice of talking to all his coma patients, convinced that somewhere in their silence, they might still hear him. With Isabella, he went further. Every morning, as he changed her bandages, he shared stories of the world outside about the crisp weather, the novels he was reading, the fleeting moments of beauty he noticed on his drive to work. "Good morning, Isabella," Ethan said softly, entering her room with fresh bandages. His voice warm and welcoming, as if she were awake and listening. "The leaves are turning golden outside your window. I bet autumn is your favorite season. There's something about how the light dances on your face that says you love life's beautiful changes." Nurses Emily and Rachel watched from the doorway, their eyes reflecting a quiet admiration for Ethan's unique approach to patient care. They'd noticed he lingered with Isabella longer than needed, his touch extraordinarily gentle when adjusting her position or checking her vitals. As Ethan carefully peeled the bandage from Isabella's arm, where the forehead caused irritation, he continued his one-sided conversation. "I read about a study yesterday that says coma patients might hear and understand more than we think. I hope you feel the love around you, Isabella. We're all here, fighting for you to come back to us." What Ethan couldn't know was that Isabella had been aware for weeks, trapped in a body that refused to obey her desperate pleas to move or speak. She had heard every word he'd said, felt the tenderness in his touch compared to the clinical efficiency of others, and had come to crave his morning visits as the only warmth in her terrifying darkness. Isabella had been battling to wake up, but her body seemed disconnected from her fierce will, until today, as Ethan's careful hands cleaned and rebandaged her arm, speaking to her with the same respect he'd offer any patient. Something miraculous shifted. His kindness, paired with her unyielding determination, shattered the barrier holding her in unconsciousness. "Ethan," Isabella whispered, her voice faint but unmistakably alive. Ethan froze, hands still holding the fresh bandage, his eyes snapping to Isabella's face. Her eyes were open, blinking slowly as she adjusted to the bright room. "After months of darkness, Isabella," Ethan's voice trembled with a mix of professional thrill and personal joy that caught him off guard. "Can you hear me? Can you see me?" "I can hear you," Isabella managed, her voice growing stronger. "I've been hearing you every morning. You told me about the leaves changing." Ethan's eyes glistened with tears as he reached for the call button to alert the staff. never breaking his gaze from Isabella's face. "How long have you been aware?" he asked, voice thick with emotion. "Weeks," Isabella said, trying to sit up slightly. "But I couldn't move, couldn't speak. You were the only one who talked to me like I was still me." The room soon buzzed with medical staff, all marveling at Isabella's awakening, running tests and checking her responses. But through the flurry, Isabella's eyes kept finding Ethan, the man whose voice had been her lifeline in the abyss. Dr. Catherine Larson, the head of neurology, conducted a thorough exam that confirmed the miracle. Isabella had suffered no significant cognitive damage and was making a remarkably full recovery. "This is extraordinary," Dr. Larson told Ethan privately. "In my 25 years, I've rarely seen someone emerge from such a long coma with such clarity." In the days that followed, as Isabella regained her strength and prepared for discharge, she and Ethan forged a friendship that surprised them both with its depth and ease. Isabella learned Ethan had chosen medicine after losing his younger sister in an accident, vowing to spare other families the helplessness he'd felt. Ethan discovered Isabella was far from the aloof tycoon he'd imagined. She was warm, curious, asking about his passions with genuine interest, sharing her dreams of using her wealth to change lives. "You know," Isabella said one afternoon, as Ethan finished his shift, "I've spent my life surrounded by people who saw me as a stepping stone, business partners, chasing deals, suitors eyeing my fortune, even friends who valued what I could offer more than who I am. That sounds so lonely," Ethan said, settling into the chair by her bed, his heart aching for her. "It was," Isabella admitted softly, "but lying here, hearing you talk to me every day, I realized you saw me as a person worth caring for, even when I could give you nothing. You spoke of books, whether small, beautiful things, not because you wanted anything, but because you believed I deserved dignity." Ethan's cheeks flushed. "That's just how I think people should be treated." "That's my point," Isabella said, her voice tender. "You did it naturally, without a second thought, because it's who you are. Do you know how rare that is?" When Isabella was discharged 2 weeks later, she asked Ethan to dinner not as doctor and patient, but as two people who'd shared something profound and wanted to see where it could lead. "I need you to know," Isabella said as they sat in a cozy restaurant, far from her world of high-stakes dinners. "If you say yes to getting to know me, you're signing up for a complicated life. Media scrutiny, social pressures, people questioning your motives." Ethan reached across the table, his touch as gentle as it had been in her hospital room. "Isabella, for 3 months, I spoke to someone I thought might never answer, might never know someone cared. If you're willing to take a chance on a doctor with a beat-up 10-year-old car who thinks a perfect night is reading journals and cooking at home, I'm ready to face whatever comes with loving you." Their relationship blossomed with the same quiet patience Ethan had shown during Isabella's recovery. They found shared passions in service and impact, delighted in simple joys like park strolls and museum visits, and built a bond rooted in respect and true affection, untouched by Isabella's wealth or Ethan's title. A year later, when Ethan proposed in the hospital room where Isabella first opened her eyes to his face, he said, "I fell in love with you when you were unconscious," which sounds absurd until I explain. I loved the person I sensed you were, your strength, your resilience. Meeting the real you has been even more incredible than I dreamed." Isabella accepted, tears streaming down her face. "You loved me when I couldn't love myself, when I couldn't even speak. You saw value in me at my most vulnerable. That's the kind of love that lasts forever." Their wedding took place in the hospital chapel, surrounded by staff who'd cared for Isabella during her recovery. Dr. Larson, an ordained minister, officiated, speaking of love born in service and deepened through devotion, of partnerships that cherish both strength and fragility. The Thornton Foundation, which Isabella launched post-recovery, became a leading medical charity, funding traumatic brain injury research and supporting families in crisis. Ethan continued his hospital work, though Isabella's support enabled him to pursue research to help others awaken from similar trials. You know, Isabella often said when asked about their love story, "People think Ethan saved my life by being there when I woke up. But he saved me long before that, by treating me with kindness and dignity when I couldn't fight for myself. He reminded me I was worth caring for, and that gave me the strength to come back." And Ethan, watching his wife support families facing crises like hers, would add softly, "Love isn't always grand gestures or perfect moments. Sometimes it's showing up every day, treating someone with gentleness when they're most vulnerable, and believing in their worth even when they can't see it themselves."